Over the last 30 years, the forces of autocracy have revived all across the globe. Its hallmarks are familiar ones: contempt for the rule of law, contempt for democratic freedom, contempt for the truth itself. Today, Russia has strangled democracy. Putin has the gall to say he's denazifying Ukraine. It's a lie. It's just cynical. He knows that. And it's also obscene. Don't even think about moving on one single inch of NATO territory. We have sacred obligation. We have a sacred obligation under Article 5 to defend each and every inch of NATO territory with the full force of our collective power.
I love that line, Mika. Don't even think about moving on a single solitary inch of NATO soil. We have, the President of the United States says to all of his NATO partners, all of his NATO allies, we have a sacred obligation.
President Biden capping his trip to Europe with a forceful speech in Poland, denouncing Putin's invasion of Ukraine, casting it as a critical moment in the fight to protect democracy and to defeat autocracy. Welcome back to Morning Joe. It's the top of the hour, 1 minute past, Monday, March 28th. Let's bring in U.S. Special Correspondent for BBC News, Katty Kay, President of the Council on Foreign Relations, Richard Haass, MSNBC contributor Mike Barnicle, and Professor of History at Tulane University, Walter Isaacson. It's great to have you all on board this hour.
Walter, you're a history professor. Talk about, at the top of the show, we talked about JFK. Saying that all free men were citizens of Berlin, all free people. Ronald Reagan at the Brandenburg Gate saying, Mr. Gorbachev, tear down this wall. This was historic in the 21st century, and it wasn't in Berlin. No, it's moved east. Now it's in Warsaw. What great news for the people of Warsaw, who were first absolutely destroyed by Hitler and then abused by Stalin for so many years.
Well, yeah, you are getting the world divided, as Biden said, into two parts, and those who are freedom-loving. And unlike the tear down this wall, or for that matter, an Iron Curtain is descending, I read Roma Shratnazar's wonderful book about the tear down this wall line, and Richard Haass was there. It was very much discussed before it was put into the speech and debated. Of course, Joe Biden does what Joe Biden sometimes does, is just blurt out what he really believes and is the truth. But I think it was a good moral statement. I think that we don't do regime change. It's up to the Russians to do it. But he's right. He's right to express a moral sentiment that given this world we're living in today and given what Russia did, good Lord, this guy cannot stay in power. Everybody's calling it a gaffe, but typical of a Michael Kinsley definition of a gaffe is when a politician blurts out the truth. And I think for Joe Biden, that was a moment of moral clarity, even if it confused, some of the message he was trying to send.
Well, I have said it very clearly, and said to Richard Haass this weekend. I think creative ambiguity is a good thing, especially when you have Vladimir Putin keeping the United States of America guessing over the past 3-4 weeks. I think it's time to change those dynamics. Richard, I know you disagree with that, but let me just say, in defense of those in the State Department who have been going behind clarifying, again, that creates a creative ambiguity like we've had in Taiwan for some time. I think that's a very good thing. You don't. Explain why.
Joe, I think everything we say, everything we do at this point ought to be measured against two yardsticks. One, does it end this war as soon as possible on terms the Ukrainian government can accept? And two, does it discourage Russia? Does it make it less likely that Russia escalates, be it by spreading the war to NATO, by using cyber attacks, by using chemical or, God forbid, nuclear weapons? And my concern with the speech, my concern with the line at the end, is that I think it works against that. What it's done is in some ways taken what has been up to now a disciplined, limited war, and in some ways made it existential for Putin. I don't want him to think that he has nothing to lose by escalating against NATO or by using chemical or nuclear weapons. I want him to feel that he does have a lot to lose. I want us still to be able to negotiate with him to bring this war to an end, again, on terms President Zelensky can accept. So I think the president went too far. And let me just say why the Reagan parallel doesn't work here. Tear down this wall. That was a policy push. This is something much more fundamental and existential against Putin and against the nature of a totalitarian system. Second of all, this statement was made by President Biden in the middle of a hot war in a country bordering on 4 NATO countries. Most important, Mikhail Gorbachev is not the head of Russia now. What we have instead is someone much darker, much more evil, who is essentially unconstrained. This is a far, far, far more dangerous situation. I simply don't understand why we would want to escalate it, particularly at a point where, as you discussed earlier, we're beginning to see some signals that the Russians know they overreached. They may be trying to redefine success, not in ways that would be acceptable to us or Ukraine, but at least in a more limited way. The goal of U.S. policy at this point ought to be, again, to end this war, prevent escalation. Down the road, yes, then we can work to see that Russia changes its either politics or its leadership. This man is destroying his own country as well as Ukraine.
Well, you know, Richard, you and I usually agree on most everything. I couldn't disagree with you more on every point. We'll get back to that. But it's almost as much of a divide as when we talk Red Sox and Yankees. But we'll get back to you on that as well. But Mike Barnicle, I have found my biggest criticism of Joe Biden over the past 3 weeks is it's almost like international relations are imitating domestic relations. Republicans play for the kill. I say that as a former Republican, and when I campaigned, I didn't play by Marquess of Queensberry rules. I played to win. That's all that mattered. You got to win. Win cleanly, but you got to win. And I've been criticizing Democrats for playing by Marquess of Queensberry rules over in the age of Trump. They act so shocked. Oh, wait, there are these rules you have to play within the boundaries. And if you don't, why, when we go low, blah, blah, blah. No, you got to win. And you've got to let the other side know that you're not scared of them. The fact that Joe Biden didn't play by Marquess of Queensberry rules, the fact that he gave a scripted State of the Union speech, and then as he turned to give the speech to Nancy Pelosi and others, he said, let's go get him. He did that on purpose. People who are saying that this was some mistake are fools. And then after this speech, near the end of the speech, he says this as well. Joe Biden's been doing this longer than most people criticizing him have been alive. It's psyops. He's letting Vladimir Putin know we're not playing in between the lines. And I think most Americans agree with him. Putin is a butcher, and Putin shouldn't stay in power later on. State Department did their job cleaning it up. We understand. But we got to be grown up enough to have a little bit of creative ambiguity. And that's exactly where Biden has Putin right now. Guessing, finally. Hey, thanks so much for watching our YouTube channel. You can follow up on today's top stories and breaking news, or catch up on your favorite MSNBC shows all in one place. Download the NBC News app today.